years back, our guild collected to support the work of the Leprosy Mission Scotland. This organisation still keeps in touch with members, and just the other week I was given a copy of their Ask 2022 prayer diary, together with a copy of their web address. For the last couple of years, we have become so focused on the pandemic that we forget that so many other conditions can affect so many people throughout the world. And these conditions have not gone away to allow medical agencies and charities to focus on COVID. When I looked at the Leprosy Mission Scotland website, I came across this short video. I want to take a few minutes to look and listen to it, as this coming Sunday is Leprosy Sunday.
Sunana Friday.
My name is Friday. I grew up in a loving family in a small village in Nigeria. I lived with my brothers and sisters and my parents. We had a good life. We were surrounded by friends in our village, and I was safe and well. But when I was 11, everything changed. At first, I noticed a numb patch on my foot. It got worse, and in the end, I had no feeling in my foot at all. My friends began to notice when we were playing. Finally, my mum took me to the Leprosy Mission's Chanchaga Hospital. There, I was diagnosed with leprosy. When we arrived home, my father would not let me in our house. He said I couldn't be part of my family anymore, and I could not live with them. I was forced to leave. They thought I was cursed, unclean. They were afraid. My mum took me back to the hospital at Chanchaga and left me there. I was 11 years old. I was alone. It was a very dark time for me. But I am grateful that this was not the end of my story. At the hospital in Chanchaga, a light began to dawn. The medical team at Chanchaga Hospital greeted me with kindness. They gave me medicine to cure me of leprosy so it couldn't damage my body anymore. A nurse called Mary took me into her home. I finally felt safe again. Now I have nearly completed my education. I just have one more year to go. I want to go to university and become a teacher. If it wasn't for the Leprosy Mission, I know I would have died. I had nowhere else to go. I owe them my life. They loved me when I had been completely rejected. They gave me back my life. With your help, the Leprosy Mission can work with communities like mine to help them understand that leprosy is not a curse. It is not something to be feared. Sometimes I imagine what life would be like if my parents had not rejected me. You can make sure another child does not suffer the way I did. Your kindness can keep a family together and make sure every child affected by leprosy feels safe in their own home.
Isn't that just the kind of story people like? A sad story with a happy ending. I'm sure that when you were listening to Friday's story, your mind was cast back to this Bible story that we all heard so often as a child. The story that comes from Luke chapter 17, verses 11 to 19.
Jesus heals 10 men with leprosy. Now, on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus travelled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." When he saw them, he said, "Go show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were cleansed. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back, praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. and he was a Samaritan. Jesus asked, "Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Rise and go, your faith has made you well." Amen, and may God add his blessing to this reading from his word.
I know for me, my knowledge or understanding of leprosy was through this story, and I'm sure many of you will be the same. In this story about healing 10 lepers, there's something slightly different from other miracle stories of Jesus, because it's not so much about the healing, but more about what happened during and after, because it's these parts that really show God's power and mercy. The men suffering from leprosy were not only very ill with what was an incurable illness at that time, they were also complete outcasts. They weren't put into 5 to 10 days isolation. Their isolation was for the rest of their lives. Leprosy is a nasty disease that causes people's flesh to scar and decay, and like Omicron, is highly contagious. Lepers formed their own communities, both for their safety and to combat their isolation. People would often throw stones at them if they thought that they were getting too close, fearing that they too would be infected. Jesus was in the village of these 10 men, but they were too afraid to approach him and, as the Bible passage says, stood at a distance and called to him to have pity on them. Jesus approached them, but didn't heal them himself. Rather, he told them to go see the priest while they still had leprosy. That is almost a definition of faith, trusting in what we cannot prove. In verse 19, Jesus tells the one leper who returned to say thanks that his faith had made him well. That, of course, is the other standout point of this story. Only one came back to thank Jesus. Most translations describe him as a foreigner. In fact, he was a Samaritan, and sometimes, as we know from another very familiar Bible story, the Samaritans were sworn enemies of the Jews at that time. So why was he the one to come back rather than the Jews? Some Bible commentators suggest that it was because he possibly had a more profound sense of what Jesus had done for him, given the enmity that existed between Jew and Samaritan. If Jesus had simply healed only the 9 Jews, that would have been accepted and almost expected. If we don't believe we deserve to be saved, and God saves us anyway, we will be deeply grateful. For Jesus to heal a Samaritan was a great demonstration that God's grace is for everyone, not simply a select few. Every day we should give thanks that God's grace and mercy is given to all of us, and that grace is given through our faith and our trust in him. Amen.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my